So since the opportunities of practicing piano here in my exchange semester are few and far between, and the quality of the piano at my dorm isn't the best, I'm really trying to get into, and not I'm trying to get to, I'm getting into mental practice right now. I'm following a protocol primarily by practicing stuff mentally and trying to learn it by heart, also to memorize it, before I even go to the piano. It's pretty hard because I've never done it before, and I'm also practicing it with stuff that I already have practiced live in order to make it a little bit easier, so as to not overwhelm my cognitive capabilities. But the idea basically is that for the piano, I'm chunking the pieces in sections as you would in normal practice. And as I also would in normal practice, I'm just practicing those little chunks, mostly hands separately in my mind. So for example, let's say I'm using Invention by Johann Sebastian Bach, number 8, the one in F major. I would, for example, say, oh, okay, let's imagine the first measure. And there should be, if I'm not mistaken, 5 notes in the right hand. Do dee dee do dee do dee ba. And I would try and imagine it hands separately, really focusing on how does it sound, if I can imagine. It's really hard if you haven't played it before, or if you're not good at sight singing. Then I would imagine how it feels, how it looks if I'm looking on my hand. You can also imagine just the piano keys, but the best thing would be to imagine where your fingers would hit the keys and how it would feel, how much weight you would use. So you can see, you can go very, very into detail and thus create desirable difficulties galore. Then I would do the same thing for the left hand. And I would really try and wrap it in my mind. And I found that since it is very hard to imagine this consistently without your mind wandering, you don't need that much of contextual interference in the beginning, because even trying to imagine the stuff correctly is contextually interferent enough. And once I'm able to play it in my mind without the sheet music, then I would go to the piano. And it doesn't have to be the whole piece. I mean, the inventions are pretty short, and at least the inventions for 2 parts are not as harmonically complex as the other ones. So you don't need a lot of theory to analyze it. You almost certainly can think in figured bass or even in chord progressions. But you can also take, I don't know, 8 measures. One of the exercises I've been doing that I did with Greg was I wrote, I think, 8 measure long solo over the progression of Careless Whisper by George Michael in the style of Nikolai Kapustin. And of course, this is technically much more challenging than an Invention. And I already played it a couple months back actually, but I have forgotten most of it. And I tried getting into that. It's really hard because it's much more challenging, but I found that it really helped me get into it better. So there is something to it, and it is a skill that has to be practiced, which I'm going to do right now after this video, just as an update. Yeah, happy practicing. Oh, and check out the book that I mentioned. It's called Fundamentals of Piano Practice by Chan C. Chuang. So CHANC.CHUANG. You can find it open source on the internet. And take it with a grain of salt, because although he goes through the process very systematically and axiomatically even, he really comes from a mathematician's mindset. The book is pretty old, and oh, pretty old, I think 20 years ago it was written. And it might not be the most optimal version of practicing this stuff. But what it does is it gets you into action, and the best action is the one you take, and the worst one is the one you don't. So yeah, happy practicing, guys.